who Bobby was. And as I learned about him and his dry sense of humor, I'm just wondering if he was certain that it was going to rain today, if he mentioned that to anyone. So I think it's fitting. But you know, Bobby, it stopped, so I don't know. We'll have a chance to turn to prayers of our tradition, words and psalms of our tradition, and most importantly, the recollection of those who knew Bobby best, friends and family, and we will then escort him to his final resting place. Our rabbis taught that there are three crowns: the crown of Torah, the crown of priesthood, and the crown of royalty. But they emphasized that the crown of a good name excels them all. The book of Ecclesiastes says, Tov Shem Mishemen Tov. A good name is to be treasured above precious oil. Wealth, health, even life passes away, but a good name lives forever. It is this view that the Talmud teaches. Monuments need not be erected for the righteous. Their deeds are their memorials. They will be remembered and revered for the kindness they have shown and for the love they have given. They are shining examples of what it means to be a mensch.
In times of sadness and in times of joy, we turn to words from our tradition, words from the Psalms that speak of God's nearness and God's light, even in times of darkness. I offer these words from Psalm 15 that I believe speak to the values that Bobby held dear. Adonai, who may abide in your house? Who may dwell in your holy mountain? Those who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them, or bring shame upon them, who scorn the lawless but honor those who revere God, who give their word and come what may, do not retract, who do not exploit others, who do not take bribes. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken. And I invite you to join with me, if you would like, in the 23rd Psalm. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever.
The Jewish tradition teaches that when one passes, it's a mitzvah, it's a sacred obligation to offer words of eulogy, words that bring the life and the memory of the individual to bear. And we have a number of speakers in some way who represent the essential aspects of Bobby's life. His dear friend Jerry Wise, certainly representing so many dear friends, granddaughter Sophie Weller, representing the granddaughters, his children Linda and Dan, and of course his beloved Gloria. So the order will be Jerry, and then Sophie, Linda, Dan, and Gloria. So I invite Jerry to come forward at this time. And then, Sophie, you'll come up when Jerry is through.
Bobby and I go back to the late 40s. It's been quite a friendship, and no one could have asked for a better friend. And we certainly had some great times together. One memorable time was around 1950, and I took Bobby skiing for the first time. It was up in Cranmore Mountain, North Conway, New Hampshire. We went up on what was called the ski-mobile at that time, and we got to the top of the mountain, and I helped Bobby put on his skis, and he says, "What do I do now?" I said, "Point him downhill, and I'll see you at the lodge." And I left. An hour later, Bobby staggered in, and I mean staggered. At that point, a young, pretty girl runs up to him, and to this day, we don't know who she was or where she's from, and gave him a hug and a kiss and said, "I never thought I'd see you again alive." That is a true story. He certainly stayed alive and continued to be an important and beloved part of our lives. When I met Barbara, our friendship blossomed and we became a threesome. Barbara and I had a 2-room apartment, and Bobby thought the second bedroom was his. We didn't know whether he was a brother, a son, or a boarder. I really think Bobby never forgave Barbara and myself for not inviting him on our honeymoon. One thing about Bobby, he was really great with his hands. I have to laugh on that one there. Whenever anything went wrong on Greenwood Street, Bobby would run to the telephone and call Arthur or Goldberg and myself to see if we could fix it. And we were always there for him as he was for us. Last week, when I had my last visit with Bobby, we discussed the Red Sox, and neither one of us knew the players' names, the golf match of the week before, world affairs, and we still had our own opinions. As I was leaving, Bobby whispered up to me, "Excuse me. I love you, Jerry." And I turned and I said, "I love you, Bobby." May he rest in peace. God, buddy. Thank you.
On May 6th, 2021, the Red Sox played against the Detroit Tigers in a high-scoring game. With 3 runs being scored in the bottom of the 8th inning, the Red Sox were able to come from behind and regain the lead, leaving everything down to the 9th inning. At 6 p.m., with 2 outs and the Red Sox seconds away from getting the win, my beloved grandfather took his final breath. He was the only one in our family to have faith in the Red Sox this year, saying that they are a young team and were going to do well, but the rest of the family had their doubts. Of course, he was right. My grandfather is the reason for my love of sports. Car rides were filled with discussions of sports, even when I was too young to understand much of it, and he was always talking to me about Weller carpets, hoping one day I would take it over. Although I didn't see carpets in my future, I savored every minute and loved being with him. As I grew older and my interest and knowledge of sports cultivated, our conversations were lengthy, talking about everything from baseball to football to golf. I recently had an interview for an internship in baseball, and when asked about why I care for the sport, I could only think of my grandfather. It is because of him that I see a future in sports, and I will carry a part of him in every game I cover and every piece I write. His passions extended far beyond baseball, too. Although I never witnessed this myself, I heard stories of a passionate skier who created a group of like-minded families to spend time together doing something they loved. He passed his love of skiing to my father, who in turn taught me. Through many tears and thousands of cups of hot chocolate, I came to love the sport too, and can thank my grandfather and my father for that. My grandfather had an influence on the lives of his wife, Gloria, his children, Dan and Linda, and his grandchildren, Jess, Paige, and myself. On Thursday night, I sat with my mother and father as they told me stories, some new and some old, of all the good times they had with Papa. From New Hampshire courtrooms to father-son golf tournaments to snowstorms on a wedding day, he made memories that we will all cherish for the rest of time. I am so thankful for every moment children, I spent Dan and Linda, and his grandchildren, Jess, Paige, and myself. I love you, Thursday Papa. Night, I sat with my mother and father as they told me stories, some new and some old.
Oh, I can take this out. Oh, okay. Hi there. If you asked Dad how his day was going, you all know what he would say. Terrible. Anyone who knew my dad knew his nickname was Mr. Grumpy, but those of you who really knew him knew it was just a front. He was a softie. He was a devoted husband, loving father, favorite uncle, affectionate and doting grandfather, proficient skier, accomplished golfer, skillful bridge player, and the most loyal and faithful friend. Dad had this dry, sarcastic sense of humor. He would always have a one-word zinger that would be delivered with perfection, whether he was trying to be funny or not. Dad loved playing golf and was very proud of his wingding. He enjoyed many years at the Valley. When we were little, I always remember him coming up to the fence at the 16th hole and visiting us at the pool. We always looked forward to seeing him and would run up in our wet swimsuits. Mom and Dad enjoyed many things together: bridge, golf, and skiing. Our ski-doodler family will remember fondly the good times we had at Gladys's and the Baker Brook Motel. Each family shared one room. When Dad snored, Danny and I would kick his bed and then pretend we were sleeping when he popped up and looked around. Skiing the slopes at Mittersill were the best memories. Mom and Dad would go out and ski with their friends, and all the kids would head out together. But we would all convene for lunch in the lodge. So much fun and lots of laughs. He loved being Papa Bobby. Jess, Paige, and Sophie loved being with him. He was very playful when they were little. He used to get down on the floor and would horse around with them. They were so lucky to have him close by and would see him often. A memory that stands out with the girls is when Grammy and Papa came with us to Disney World. Seeing Papa get soaked on Splash Mountain was classic. All three girls enjoyed visiting them in Florida. The golf cart rides with Papa were a highlight for them. He would always let them drive. Danny and I were clearly the perfect children. We never gave Mom and Dad anything to fret about. Dad was always affectionate, and obviously, I was his favorite. 3 years ago, I had the privilege of accompanying Dad to Washington, D.C. with a group called Honor Flight. We were treated like VIPs as we were bussed around D.C. with police escorts to all the veterans' memorials. He felt important and special that day. It is memory that I will never forget. Sadly, in his later years, Dad had to give up golf, but he had a wonderful and full life. Rest peacefully, Dad. We will continue to cheer on your beloved Red Sox. We love you.
Take a little bit more prep.
And more tissues.
In my house, when I tell a joke for the second time, I'm immediately told that it's getting old, Dan. I guess I got that from my dad, who did not have a plethora of jokes, but somehow the ones he told his entire life, every day, continued to keep us laughing. That's a nice sweater. Did you buy it new? If you dared ask my father how he was doing, you would receive the stock answer. I'm not going to be around much longer. Business is terrible, and Gloria and I are not going to make it. Well, he lasted 92 years. The business found a way to last 67 years, and he and Mom celebrated their 63rd wedding anniversary this past April. Dad made certain that our families enjoyed life. When we were young, he made sure that I would learn to play golf. Of course, I never became the golfer he was, but I do enjoy what he called the great kibitz, which was his way of teaching me that golf is less of a competition and more of an opportunity to be with your friends. I can remember Dad playing every Wednesday afternoon and Saturday morning in what became the infamous Weller Wingding at Spring Valley Country Club. Every year we played in the father-son tournament with Phil and David Aronson, and they both rest in peace. Sundays were reserved for playing with wives. He took great joy when his brother Teddy, may he rest in peace, joined Spring Valley. They enjoyed many years of golf together. I recall when he and Mom were considering the move to Florida, he didn't want to go. We would try and convince him that it would be wonderful for him and he could play all the golf he wanted. In his classic way, Dad complained that it would not be the same and he did not know anyone down there to play with. Well, it took about 2 weeks before he was running a new Weller Wingding in Florida with a large group of new friends. One of the great joys of my life, which I had been doing since I was about 6 years old, when Dad and his great friend Joe Bronstein, may he rest in peace, started the Skidoo Ski Club in Bethlehem, New Hampshire. First, we stayed in a boarding house called Gladys's, and then as the group grew, we moved to the Baker Brook Motel. Every weekend, a convoy of wood-paneled station wagons would make their way up I-93, squawking in our CB radios to one another for yet another wonderful weekend with friends and family. The carpetbagger was Dad's handle, although Linda and I monopolized the radio on those memorable drives. I remember skiing at Mittersill, dinners at the Karamat and Oliver's in Littleton, and of course my favorite, penny candy at Lahoots. To keep the fun going, Dad would organize a summer picnic at Lars Anderson Park every year where we had softball games and other family activities. The Skidoodlers continued until I went away to college. Much later, Barry Bronstein would send me a picture from Baker Brook every year when he and his wife Allison would venture back to stay there until it ultimately closed. In 1999, I moved back to Boston and joined Robert Weller Corporation, a business I avoided for years. Imagine your dad coming home from work every day, head in hand, complaining about business. "How was your day, Dad?" He would drop his head, shaking it side to side. Sorry, I lost my place. Truth be told, Dad took great pride in what he did, and I believe he loved what he did for a living. He had the opportunity to work with his brother Herb, may he rest in peace, for years, and together they built a successful business. Over the years, their customers closed to be replaced by big, box stores. When I joined, Herbie had already retired, and Dad had been working with a local chain of discount stores. I was frightened to join a business that relied on a single customer, so I would try and introduce changes that would help us into the future. This proved to be the biggest challenge of my entire life. Dad did not like change. He did his best to let me try, and in some cases fail, but ultimately we found a balance that worked, and Robert Weller Corporation lives on. I enjoyed my lunches with him every day. Where we would likely argue about new ideas and how best to move forward. Unfortunately, because of COVID and his declining health, our lunches stopped. I miss that time I had with him more than anything. Dad was not one to praise me. Later, I would learn that what he couldn't tell me, he would tell others. I found great joy in the fact that he was proud of me, even though it was challenging for him to tell me himself. Dad did, however, share his pride and love of his 3 grandchildren, Jess, Paige, and Sophie. He loved their warm hugs and relished in their stories. In the past year, while isolated because of COVID, Dad shared with me how much he loved Mom and how he could not have gotten through the challenges of life without her. While Linda and I would jokingly refer to them as the Bickersons, there was a mutual love they had that spilled over to us all. For me, heaven is the memories and legacy we leave behind. My father spent his lifetime teaching us about the importance of love, friendships, and commitments. The lessons we have from him will live on from generation to generation. Every day, as the nurses would come in to care for him, he would blow them a kiss from his bed. They all remarked how sweet a man he was. He really was. I will miss you, Dad.
Love him.
Check.
Do you want to try and go up, and Danny and I will...
No, that's all right.
Okay. Here.
Thank goodness I put makeup on.
A little lower.
This is it's plenty loud, so you don't have to be too close.
Don't do it
Okay.
close to you. Do it like here.
Okay. Just a little history of the people who spoke. Jerry Wise, when Daddy and Bobby got very ill, was there every week with a strawberry shake. Made him drink it. Sophie, we're so proud of you, and you're a wonderful spokesperson for all the rest of the grandchildren. For all the rest, the 2 other grandchildren. Huh? And Lynn and Max, you always make us proud. And, oh, sorry. What's your name? Dan. Last night, I turned on the TV and I found Burns' a version of his baseball, and the one that was on was about Babe Ruth and Jackie Robinson, and it was terrific, and it was very fitting that I should have seen that last night. So I have written a poem. I usually do. To remember Bobby, I must mention his friends, a huge amount. There have been so many, I don't want to miscount. There is Jerry, Bobby, Peck, that is, Bert Silverstein, Herbie Henkin, Donnie in Florida, Joel, Sydney, they're all still here. There was Arthur, Joe, Freddie, Dick, Phil, Kess, Herb, Mark. Some of these people have been gone for a while. Jim Goodman and David Zussman, who just passed. Some I might have missed, I fear. His passing has brought many, many memories to mind. Looking back, so many things I find. There were years of golf, our very first love. Then skiing fit us like a perfect glove. Our children have brought us pride and joy. We had a King's family, a girl and a boy. 19 years wintering in Florida sunshine, good times enjoying the weather sublime. But when the kids said it's time to come back, we sold our Florida home and began to pack. It was a perfect decision, as it turned out. When aging, being with family is what life is all about. For the first few years, Bobby was happy as can be. He was driving to work every day with glee. Bob was proud of his son, who changed the business for the better, and to Bobby's surprise, Dan was a real go-getter. As fate would have it, Bobby's health went downhill. No solutions, no therapies, no magic pill. He fell, broke his knee, so from the hospital they sent him to rehab to stay. There he lost the battle, not eating in pain and withering away. After 63 years, it was sad to see, but it was time for him to go. I wanted him at peace at last. This may sound harsh, I know. Looking back, I could count my blessings, left with remarkable children and grandchildren. Hope happier times ahead, till only God knows when.
Thank you, Gloria, for your poetry. No, not your first, and everyone who spoke. I think we all know we will have lived right if at our own funerals there's laughter and tears, and that's what we find this afternoon. When I had the privilege of visiting with Linda, Dan, Lisa, Gloria by phone this past Friday to learn about who Bobby was, inevitably, I also learned about the carpet business, things I never knew before. One of the innovations that Bobby brought to the business was making rugs out of carpet remnants, the extra 6, 7, 8 feet of carpet that exceeded, I hope I get the dimensions right, 250 feet to a roll? 250 feet of material. So if it didn't quite add up, if there was extra, that would be cut off and presumably discarded. But Bobby saw a use for these pieces, and he took them and he made something new and beautiful. This afternoon, we too have been taking the remnants of Bobby's life. We're beginning the process of sharing these memories and stitching them together. Robert Weller, Bobby, was born on December 26, 1928, to Pauline and Michael Weller in Dorchester. He was the youngest of 3 boys, along with Herb and Teddy, raised by their parents in Brookline. From a young age, the foundations of Bobby's life emerged. Foundations that would not be shaken throughout the fullness of his 92 years. Things that we've heard about today: family, friendship, a lifelong connection to Temple Israel in Boston, and business. Family was the bedrock. His brothers, his father who taught him his livelihood in the carpet business, and of course with Herb, and eventually Dan, with whom he shared the business for many years. We can only imagine the immense joy it gave him, Dan, when you joined that business, and what a blessing for a father to impart knowledge, wisdom, and a craft in life to a son. And as those years went on, it probably wasn't about the business. As you mentioned, it was about the lunch. As long as the rotation of hot dogs, hamburgers, pizza was in play, everything was in balance. And as someone who succeeded in business, it must have filled Bobby with immense pride to see Linda run her candy store as an entrepreneur herself. Dan and Linda, for you, your dad was simply fun, with all of the activities, all the things you loved to do together. And I loved how you told me about, as kids at the pool at the country club, you'd hear the click-clack, and that was time to run to the fence and greet all the dads as they went by in their game. Dan, you mentioned that your father was not a very religious person, but that he always stayed connected to Temple Israel, where he became bar mitzvah, and you and Linda became b'nai mitzvah and confirmed. And since we met, Dan, and I got my start in life at Temple Israel, and my dad was assistant rabbi, and really your rabbi. It's always been very special to me to have this relationship and to be here, and for Karen and me to have Sophie taking care of our kids too. And that goes back to your dad and to your mom, and a legacy and commitment that they made. I have no doubt that the model, Dan, that your dad and mom set in affiliating with synagogue provided a model for you. And you've served this congregation as a past president, and along with Lisa and Sophie, you're so dear to all of us. You give this place so much of your heart and soul. Linda and Dan, you brought your dad so much joy by expanding your family with your spouses. Max, whom we know was almost like, if I can go so far, the second coming. Really, the and Lisa, Bobby loved to say thank you to you every meal, and that gratitude showed you that he didn't take blessings for granted. Jessica, Paige, and Sophie brought Bobby so much nachas too. I know he wanted nothing more than to be with you for your wedding, and he will be with you in spirit. And I know that his legacy lives on in terms of the father that he was to you. When I see Sophie looking at you, Dan, and how you provided and continued to provide the model of a loving father to her. Yet none of Bobby's family in his adult life would have been possible without Gloria. Gloria was Bobby's loving wife for 63 years. When you were fixed up all those years ago, you just hit it off. Bobby was funny and fun, and you had fun together in a life of activity and action, doing all those things that you love to share, and most importantly, doing it with those friends who are dearest to you, those friends who still make up the core of your community. You could say that Bobby also made a career out of being friends. In fact, you could say it was kind of friendship that kept him serving in the Korean War right here in the United States, because as a sergeant, his commanding officers found a friend who was competent with payroll, making sure that they got their due in time. And of course, we know that as a businessman, to pay your workers before the sun goes down is a true Jewish value. Even in Florida later in life, it was only friends that made Florida more palatable for Bobby. People were simply drawn to him, but Gloria, no friendship was as long or as deep as the one that Bobby had with you through your marriage. You were a loyal and constant support to Bobby until the end. Given Bobby's love of work, family, and friendship, it's no wonder that the past year of pandemic was especially difficult for him. Bobby's ultimate decline was not the falls, it was the past few months of having to be isolated, not being able to leave the apartment, to be with friends and family or play cards. Connection was his lifeblood. But Bobby was still Bobby to the end, even when he couldn't speak and his mind had deteriorated. He could always blow that kiss to nurse, to family member alike. We have to be thankful that in his final days, family was able to be present, and when he died, he was surrounded by his loved ones. You escorted him out of this world with tenderness and love, and that circle that you embraced him with, that was your hug and your caress on his cheek. The Talmud teaches that when we die and judgment awaits, we are asked the following questions. Were you honest in business? Did you leave a legacy? Did you seek wisdom? The answer for Bobby was yes to all of these questions. He conducted himself honorably and with a moral compass in business. The evidence of his legacy is right here. He knew that while life was not always easy or simple, in the end, he lived with a sense of blessing and gratitude. That's wisdom. As we go forth, we will continue to always assemble the remnants of Bobby's life, together sharing in his enduring blessing, weaving a beautiful tapestry of memory. Amen. I invite you to just take a few minutes for your own silent thoughts and prayers, memories of Bobby, prayers that you want to send to his family for comfort, and then we'll come to the conclusion of our service.
A poem by Rabbi Alvin Fine that speaks to the stages and touchstones of a long life lived fully. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again. Birth is a
From
beginning
health
and
to
death
sickness
a
and back
destination.
we pray to health
But life
again.
is a journey,
From
a
offense to
going,
forgiveness,
a growing,
from
loneliness
stage
to
to love,
stage,
from joy
from childhood
to
to maturity,
from
and
pain
youth to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place
and often
along
back
the way,
again,
but in
Birth is
having
from
beginning
health
and
to
death
sickness
a
and back
destination.
stage by
But
stage
life
again.
is a
It's
journey,
sacred. From
a
offense to
going, a
forgiveness.
Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting.
In just a moment, Rabbi Karen will chant the El Malei Rachamim prayer that asks for God to watch over Bobby's soul. That will be the conclusion of our funeral service here, and at that point, the casket will be let out, followed by the two of us and then the family. Those who are coming to Sharon at the cemetery, the staff from Brezniak will help arrange you in the processional line. If you need to use the restroom, there are restrooms just down the hall here, a men's and women's room, and then there is also an all-gender bathroom around the corner. We just ask that it's one family group at a time in a restroom, and that we're just not going to mingle inside the building in terms of our COVID protocols. Of course, Shiva tonight is a Zoom Shiva. That's at 7:30 p.m. 7 p.m. That's right. And so 7 p.m., and I believe that information went out to everyone. Again, thank you all for being here this afternoon.
I invite you to rise in body or in spirit. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, Im Kedoshim Uteorim Kezohar Harakia Mazhirim. Et Nishmat Hillel ben Michael Shehalach le'olamo Baal harachamim Yastirehu beseter kenafav le'olamim Vitzror bitzror hachaim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Robert Weller, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen.